Harper was fully aware of the lack of affection she received in her husband's homeland, and this realization burdened her heart as she set foot in that foreign place. She couldn't help but wonder how she would be treated as a daughter-in-law among them. Certainly not with kindness and warmth, she tried to reason with herself. And yet, her thoughts continued to swirl incessantly. Could it be any different? After all, her husband's parents, along with his grandmother Avery, had initially welcomed her with open arms, offering generous hospitality and a comforting bath. They had never uttered a single harsh word towards her. And yet, the reservations of her father-in-law, her mother-in-law's disapproving hisses, and their disdainful glances spoke volumes. Harper's inability to conceive grandchildren in 12 years of marriage had completely overshadowed all her merits. One fateful day, her cousin revealed that her own father, as well as her husband's uncle, was secretly pushing her husband to seek out another woman capable of bearing children. Although it was mentioned during a drunken conversation, there is a saying that a drunken man's words are a sober man's thoughts. Harper forcefully pushed this disheartening notion aside. A month after this revelation, however, something unexpected occurred. 2 months later, she found herself hospitalized due to a sudden bout of seizures. It turned out to be an ectopic pregnancy. The doctors gave a glimmer of hope, stating that her remaining fallopian tube was healthy, ensuring the possibility of future pregnancies. But the years went by, filled with never-ending and grueling treatments. Harper struggled to endure the various courses, at times gasping for breath, then losing weight, only to be caught in a vicious cycle of undergoing new and prolonged treatments that persisted for months on end. Initially, on a monthly basis, she would listen to her own thoughts, indulge in fantasies, envisioning the existence of a fragile new life within her. However, every time disappointment enveloped her. This ongoing saga had become a familiar companion in Harper's life. One cannot indefinitely anticipate miracles. At times, she felt utterly disheartened, believing it was all in vain and relinquished hope. Yet, there were also moments where a glimmer of optimism emerged, convincing her that the long-awaited miracle was indeed forthcoming, necessitating nothing more than patience. It is worth mentioning that during those years, in vitro fertilization, IVF, was only whispered about, an unattainable option for ordinary individuals like Harper and her husband. The rhythmic churning of the train's wheels reverberated through the carriage. How would she be received upon her arrival? Of course, she could choose not to go. However, approximately 6 years ago, Harper had caught wind of a certain suspicion. That Roman had a paramour in their homeland. This led to a scandal, even prompting her to leave him temporarily. Yet Roman, with pleading eyes, begged her to return. He never refuted the accusation, nor made any promises. Instead, he proffered his love as an invite. And now, it was he who convinced her to accompany him on this journey. A lengthy half-flight lay ahead of them. An elaborate vacation awaited them in the northern region. With resolve, Harper made a decision. If they were received poorly, she retained the option to depart at any given moment. The reception, though not unpleasant, maintained an air of secrecy and concealed glances, constantly giving rise to the nagging sensation that something was being withheld. All right, Harper thought to herself, I'm a newcomer here. Perhaps they're just reserved or simply not fond of me. Opting to not dwell on it much, she shrugged it off. She pitched in around the house wherever she could, looking after her 6-month-old niece, and guiding her nearly blind grandmother Avery, who peered at her through misty eyes. As the sun dipped below the horizon, she strolled by the river with her husband. Everything appeared all right on the surface, but an unsettling feeling gnawed at her from within. One evening, Harper wandered down to the river on her own, and that's when it hit her. The gentle murmur of the river unleashed a torrent of tears. They streamed down uncontrollably, and there was no way to halt them. Aged, with a trembling right hand, an elderly lady approached, seeking a wandering goat. She paused for a moment before settling down beside me. "Is it difficult, my dear?" she inquired. Harper, sniffling, replied, "It is indeed challenging." Curious, the old woman asked, "Why so?" Harper, wiping away her tears, lamented, "I long for children, but God has not granted my wish." Sympathetically, the old woman sighed, "That is unfortunate. Have you pleaded with him?" Harper responded with conviction, "Countless times." Comfortingly, the old woman reassured, "God anticipates your virtuous acts. Once he deems it appropriate, your desire shall be fulfilled. Do not despair. Trust in his divine plan." With her quivering hand, the old woman crossed Harper's path, bestowing a blessing. The elderly lady departed, and Harper didn't quite believe her words, yet they brought her a sense of tranquility. And rightly so, no matter what. As is the tradition in all Russian villages, upon her son's arrival, they journey to the cemetery to tend to the elder generation, painting the fence, tending to the flowers, and then to the chapel, to bless the departed souls. Harper awaited her family at the chapel, where she encountered a young girl, about 4 years old, clambering upon the tall railing. By accident, she slipped and found herself rather precariously stuck with her foot ensnared in the intricate wrought iron design. Reacting swiftly, Harper leaped to her aid. "Much obliged, auntie," exclaimed the fearless girl, undeterred by the ordeal. "And what might your name be?" "I'm Aunt Harper. And you?" "I'm Lisa. Come along. I'll show you something." With that, Lisa grasped Harper's hand and dragged her deeper into the cemetery. "Observe these small graves," Lisa disclosed. "Lying here are little babies. You should stroke the crosses. Give it a try." "Why?" pondered Harper, uncertain of the girl's insistence. "It's necessary. It'll keep your fears at bay." Harper was entirely fearless. To gratify the insistent young girl further, she approached and caressed the cross, followed by taking a cloth and dusting it off. "Lisa, who are you visiting here?" "I'm here for my mom, but she's way over, on the far side of the cemetery, past the woods." "Lisa, where are you?" echoed a voice from the chapel. "Over here on my way," she called back, her voice fading into the distance. "Farewell, you're truly kind, I know." And she dashed off towards the voice. "Curious child. It's sad she's without her mother," mused Harper. She mingled among the petite graves, reflecting on the profound sorrow of bearing a child only to lose them. The burden seemed much heavier for these mothers than for herself. She had no grievances with destiny. All had departed the chapel, except for one elderly lady. Harper opted to fetch her, overhearing Avery whispering a prayer. "Forgive me, O Lord, for Peyton. I so deeply wished for my grandson's happiness that I inadvertently caused misfortune. It's my doing." At that moment, Harper could make neither heads nor tails of it. It simply didn't register with her. The sun was setting, signaling the end of the vacation days. Harper, never one to be idle, always managed to find something to occupy her time. In the same yard, there were 2 houses, one belonging to Harper's parents and grandmother, and the other to her sister's family. Her relationship with her sister had always been good, and she often found solace in spending time at their house. One evening, as she lay in bed, Harper suddenly remembered that she had forgotten to hang up the laundry to dry. She quietly slipped out into the yard to rectify her oversight, but what she stumbled upon was something unexpected. Voices carried through the air, revealing an intense argument between Roman and his sister. "I can't do it, don't you understand?" Roman's voice rang out with frustration. "It will be the end, just like before. I know it." His sister responded in a fierce whisper, "She has the right to know, Roman. How can you not understand that?" The intensity of the conversation lingered in Harper's mind throughout the night, leaving her unable to sleep. In the morning, determination burned inside her. and she woke Roman with an unwavering demand to know the contents of their whispered conversation. She issued a warning. If he failed to reveal the truth, she would leave. She couldn't bear to live a lie any longer. Her thoughts naturally gravitated towards the idea of infidelity. And she wasn't far off. 6 years ago, Roman had arrived here alone. After a night of revelry, he found himself waking up next to a former classmate. The details of how it had happened remained a hazy blur in his memory. What he did know was that Baba Avery had played a significant role in the affair. Constantly hyping up Peyton, she had inadvertently set the stage for this regrettable encounter. Roman only spilled part of the beans. Truth be told, he wasn't even clued in on the whole shebang. Then his sister chimed in to fill the gaps. "Harper, I'm truly sorry. This family disaster is so overwhelming, it's tough to put into words." Grandma's sobbing her heart out, praying around the clock. We end up practically dragging her out of the church. She's pleading for forgiveness. Always been headstrong, that one. But what she was after. Then off the deep end she went. Peyton got Roman under her spell. Made sure he had his fill of booze. Everyone hoped he'd up and leave you to come back to us if Peyton bore his child. And sure enough, Peyton had a baby girl, but fell sick and passed away a year later. Now Grandma's drowning in guilt, blaming herself for the whole mess and Peyton's death, and frets over the girl growing up an orphan. "Where's the kid now?" Harper asked Roman later. "She's staying with her great-grandmother, Peyton's grandma. It's a tangled web. Let's head over. We should meet her. I'll bring her here today. I was meaning to anyway. After our spat, I figured you'd never forgive me. Our great-grandma's in poor health. I need to take the little one, you get it." Harper felt a lump rise in her throat. Her emotions were a whirlpool of confusion. Oddly enough, the bitterness over the infidelity had evaporated. Yet, she couldn't muster any love for this child, a stranger. No, she was almost certain she couldn't embrace a girl she didn't know, a child completely alien to her. Something that had been eagerly awaited for many years was finally happening in the household. The entire family was in a state of anticipation, making preparations to welcome the arrival of Harper and Roman's daughter. There was an air of tranquility, yet everyone was bustling about, busily arranging the table for some reason or another. Grandmother Avery sat serenely beside the sacred icons, while Roman went to fetch his daughter and her aged, ailing great-grandmother. As the final touches were put in place, a heavy silence descended upon the house. The only sound that could be heard was the steady ticking of the clock. Suddenly, the sister caught sight of something through the window and let out a sigh of relief. "They're coming," she announced, her words escaping her lips. In an instant, the gate slammed shut, footsteps echoed through the hallway, and the door swung open. And then, like the chiming of a bell, a child's voice broke the silence. "Aunt Harper, is that you? I knew you would be my second mother. And soon I'll have a sister too, right? But I don't want a brother. I'm not fond of boys in general. Lisa, my darling, it's so wonderful to see you." "What brother are you talking about?" Harper asked, bewildered. "Sis, she's already here," Lisa exclaimed, as she wrapped her arm around Harper's waist and pressed her ear against her stomach. "I can hear her." And in that moment, Harper began to realize, albeit slowly, that perhaps she had forgotten something crucial. The counting of days, the signs, even the morning sickness, it all started to make sense. Harper's heart leaped with joy at the sight of Lisa, as if a mysterious bond had formed between them amidst the solemnity of the cemetery. She raised her gaze and spotted an elderly woman, Lisa's great-grandmother, standing at the doorway with a trembling hand. A smile graced her face as she whispered, "Oh, thank God. Please forgive me." The voices of the icons echoed her words.